Hi, everybody. Vasu Vaddiparty here with the VPartySports podcast for this Monday afternoon, 3 o'clock on the East Coast, 12 o'clock on the West Coast. If you missed any of the information, we're going to replay it all the way up until 6 o'clock, at which time you get the daily bets and the daily post at 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. But I will give you a bonus one at the end of this show. We're here every Monday. We're here Thursdays, we're here Saturdays and Sundays, previewing the NFL, the NCAA, NBA, NHL, all the sports and sports wagering news, the betting tips that we can give you, and also the recaps and replays of all the games that happened in the previous weekend as well, too. Don't forget, we'll be here Thursday afternoon again, preview of the NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. Playoffs are all set in the NFL, NBA, NCAA, basketball, hard at it, NCAA and conference play, the NBA about 30 games into the regular season of an 82-game schedule. Now the football's starting to wind down. People getting back into the NBA and NCAA as well, too. We'll have a BCS championship recap as well. Daily post, again, 6 o'clock Eastern weekdays, sponsorship inquiries. Contact me directly on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter at VPartySports, or you can look me up, Vasu Vaddiparty, on Facebook and YouTube. Appreciate everybody, all the support you have. See the ticker going across to the bottom. Playoffs are all set in the NFL, NBA. Had a wild weekend. NCAA conference play the first Saturday after the new year. Always a big time for college basketball. And then, of course, NHL hockey. A lot of storylines in the NHL as well, too. But we start off in Inglewood, California. The National Championship BCS game. Georgia is a 13-point favorite over the TCU Horned Frogs. SoFi Stadium, Inglewood, California. Those of you NFL fans know it's where the Rams and the Chargers play. It'll be open tonight for a lot of Georgia fans, a lot of TCU Horned Frog fans. 14-0 Georgia Bulldogs, number one in the BCS rankings, a defense that only allows 12.8 points a game. TCU, meanwhile, comes in out of the Big 12, 41 points a game. Georgia's front seven, very dominant. The pass rush needs to get to Max Duggan. Max Duggan throws the ball deep more times than any quarterback in the NCAA. So they're going to have to protect the quarterback. That front seven, the offensive line, is going to have to give Max Duggan protection in this game. Kendre Miller may not play for TCU, but they've got Mercado back there in the backfield. It's going to be an interesting matchup between TCU. TCU lost the Big 12 championship to Kansas State, but because of circumstances, including Ohio State, including USC, Tennessee did not fare well as going into the last weekend. Lots of circumstances. Those of you that remember from a month ago, the conference championship weekend, a very interesting set of circumstances. TCU, 2 weeks ago, last Saturday, they beat Michigan. They scored 51 points on Michigan. Duggan was awesome. They ran the ball all over Michigan. They confused the Michigan defense, and that game was not as close as it seems, 51-45, the final score for TCU, covering the 12.5 points that Michigan was favored, 8.5 points that Michigan was favored. 12.5 points, I think it was 12.5 points. I forget, but it was a double-digit underdog. TCU wins outright. The Georgia Bulldogs, they were down to Ohio State in the second semifinal game. It looked like they were going to be done. In fact, I'll tell you what it was right now. It was the TCU Horned Frogs. They lost to Michigan 51-45. Michigan was a 7.5-point favorite, 56 the total. Game went way over. It looked like arena football, according to people I was talking to. They've coached. It was just up and down at the Fiesta Bowl all last week, 51-45. Pick 7 by Bud Clark got the game started for TCU, and then Duggan with a 1-yard run. Field goals, and then DeMarcado with a 1-yard run. Again, Miller may not play tonight, probably won't play tonight, but DeMarcado, a good substitute running back for the TCU Horned Frogs. And then Michigan pulled back, and they were close. They got a touchdown to make it 51-45, and that was the final score. So TCU, number 3 in the BCS rankings. They beat Michigan outright. They come to Southern California, to SoFi Stadium, to take on the Georgia Bulldogs, who got the victory over Ohio State last second play, 42-41 over my Buckeyes. They were a 5-point favorite as a close, 6-point favorite. Ohio State had the lead for most of the game. You look at the scoring that took place. Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. got the scoring started for Ohio State. Then McIntosh came back, tied the game up. Williams and then Harrison Jr. again before Milton, Bennett, a field goal. Xavier Johnson, a 37-yard pass. 28-24 at that point. We're not even at halftime yet. So no defense in this BCS championship. Coming into this BCS championship, no defense in the semifinal games. Then a touchdown, a field goal, and a touchdown in the third quarter for Ohio State. 38-24 going into the fourth quarter. But here comes Georgia. Field goal, a touchdown, a two-point conversion, and then a made field goal, 41-35. And then Adonai Mitchell, a 10-yard pass from Stetson Bennett. Ohio State had a chance at the end, but Ruggles missed from 46 yards wide left. And here we are, Georgia, TCU, tonight, 7:30 Eastern. SoFi Stadium, Inglewood, California, down there in Southern California. It's going to be pretty good weather. It's not going to affect the game too much. Both teams come from the southeast and the mid and the southwest, so not going to have to deal with weather problems too much. A lot of fans out here traveling. TCU is going to make a good representation. The Horned Frogs are going to be represented very well in their fan base. Of course, the SEC, their fan base, need not say anything for themselves as well, too. They represent themselves very well. So Georgia, TCU tonight. The line, as we last checked, 13 for Georgia. 13-point spread for Georgia. That's a lot. 2 touchdowns in a BCS championship. TCU with Max Duggan and quarterback going up against that front seven. The pass rush, as we said, will have to get to him. The offensive line needs to protect Duggan. DeMarcado, the rest of the running backs have got to get this thing going in order to keep that Georgia offense off. Stetson Bennett, the fourth, he's very underrated in terms of his quarterback play. He finished fourth in the Heisman Trophy balloting, but Kirby Smart has a lot of confidence. The teammates have a lot of confidence. When they had to come back against Georgia, couldn't just run the ball and rely on the defense, although the defense did play great in the fourth quarter. But you got to be able to throw the ball every once in a while, and Bennett did prove that. And so they come in mostly based on their defense, only allowing 12.8 points a game. Georgia coming in, but TCU 41.1, the Big 12, a lot of scoring. They average 41 points a game. They give up 25 a game. Georgia 39.4. They give up 12.8. But total yards, Georgia nearly 500 yards in total yards. TCU a little below that at 475, but passing pretty much equal, rushing pretty much equal. Actually, TCU averages a little bit more. And then yards allowed, that's where TCU differs with Georgia. 292 yards allowed for Georgia, outstanding in 14 games, barely over 200 yards a game. And then TCU allows 385 yards per game. Passing yards allowed, TCU averages 235 allowed, Georgia 215. But here's the difference again. Rush yards allowed, Georgia only allows 77 yards a game, whereas TCU allows 150 yards. So Georgia, they can run the ball as well, too. They've got Stetson Bennett back there. Against the spread, which is what most of you are looking for in this scenario, TCU 10-3-1 against the spread. They've had a lot of close games this year, a lot of games where they didn't think that people didn't think they were going to win, but they came back and won late in the fourth quarter with an experienced quarterback. Ask Max Duggan. You got to think that the confidence is pretty high, especially after the way they handled Michigan. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Georgia-Michigan coming in based on the point spreads, based on Las Vegas. You thought it was going to be Georgia and Michigan coming in. But those are the immediate numbers. TCU's last 5. We told you Michigan, the K-State game in the Big 12 championship, they blew out Iowa State. They came back on Baylor, and then they beat up on Texas back in mid-November. Georgia, they get the comeback win against Ohio State. They beat up on LSU in the championship game, the SEC championship game, though they gave up 30 points in that game. Georgia Tech, they ran over. Kentucky had a pretty good defense. They didn't get very many points there, 16, but then they ran it up against Mississippi State, 45-19, their last 5 games. So SoFi Stadium, the site, 7:30 Eastern, ESPN. Apparently all the podcasts, all the mega casts that they're going to be, home broadcast, road broadcast, ESPN Plus. Anywhere you want to find the game, you'll be able to find it, both streaming and on TV on ESPN. Me, I'm a simple guy. It's going to be ESPN. It's going to be Chris Fowler. It's going to be Kirk Herbstreit. It's going to be Holly Rowe. It's going to be Chris Budden. everybody that's going to be there on regular TV, I'm there for it. But Georgia, 13-point favorite, 63.5 the total. You got to think the way the semifinals go, the over would be the play there. But you'll be surprised. Defenses may show up. It's not always the way it works out from the week before. Teams have had a week to prepare. Teams have had a month to prepare for these Final Four teams in order to be able to play. So with a month of preparation, I think you're going to see some of the best football you're going to see all year. Georgia, TCU tonight, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, out here on the West Coast in Inglewood, California, home of the Chargers and Rams. SoFi Stadium is where you're going to find it. I'll have a best bet for you on this game before we get off the air. All right, we come back in 30 seconds. A recap of the NFL. The playoffs are set for Super Wild Card Weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs have the number 1 seed. We'll give you the rest of the matchups. We'll recap an exciting Sunday and Saturday over the weekend in the NFL in 30 seconds. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. This is the VPartySports podcast for this Monday afternoon. Hope your weekend was great. Hope your games went well. We'll have our best bet segment for you online on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and I'll give you one before the show ends this afternoon. Back in 30 seconds with the VPartySports podcast. Hi, everybody. Vasu Vaddiparty back with you for segment 2 of the VPartySports podcast. And you can see us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Really appreciate all the comments, all the support we've been getting on all those outlets. Also catch us on YouTube as well. If you're interested in sponsorship inquiries, contact me directly. I help your sports bar, help your restaurant, however promotions you want to get in to the VPartySports podcast. Vasu Vaddiparty, your host here. The BCS championship game, we talked about it, TCU and Georgia. Georgia, the number 1 ranked team in the country. 39 points a game scored, 14 allowed. Meanwhile, TCU 41 a game, 25 allowed. Georgia nearly a 2-touchdown favorite at 13, 63.5 the total. That's gone up. Based on the semifinals last week, you would think that over might be able to hit. TCU needs to protect their quarterback with their offensive line. They got to run the ball. DeMarcado has got to be the main featured back there. And then Duggan cannot be afraid to take deep shots, even though that front 7 has been dominant versus Georgia. Stetson Bennett got to do what he's got to do all year. They're 14-0 for a reason. They run the ball well. They've got all caliber wide receivers, first-team All-Americans. But that front 7, that's going to be the difference. Who can control the line of scrimmage between the TCU offensive line and the Georgia defensive line? A lot of people think Georgia is going to be able to handle it. 13 points, the line. I was surprised that it went up that high. I thought it would have been like 8 or 9, but based on what last week's point spreads were. But it's 13, and the total 65. You see it going across the bottom of the screen on the ticker, as well as the NFL Super Wildcard Weekend lines, the NBA lines, and the NHL lines as well. All right, speaking of Super Wildcard Weekend, let's give you the lines that have come out for next weekend. We'll break down the weekend recap from Saturday and Sunday. Exciting games that happened. How lit was Buffalo? How lit was Lambeau Field in Green Bay last night? Unbelievable surroundings, unbelievable games that happened. And probably I'll give you the worst bad beat of the year as we move on through this recap of Saturday and Sunday's NFL weekend. All right, Super Wildcard Weekend. 49ers a 10-point favorite over Seattle. It'll be the 3rd time they played the Seahawks. 43 the total. The Chargers, who had Mike Williams injured, Joey Bosa injured, they didn't have any reason to play any of their starters. They were not going to move up or down. They should have done what the New York Giants did. But Brandon Staley played some of their guys. Hopefully it doesn't come back to haunt him. Mike Williams, one of the best receivers in the NFL. Joey Bosa, of course, we know, pass rushing specialist for the Chargers. But they're still a 1-point favorite at Jacksonville, who won on Saturday night against Tennessee. 47.5 the total. Jacksonville, the 4 seed. The AFC South champions, the Chargers, the 5 seed. By the way, San Francisco, the 2 seed. Seattle, the 7 seed. Seattle had to have help last night from Detroit. They got it. And so they're in the playoffs. No Lions, no Packers in that 7th seed. That Saturday and Saturday night, the Chargers, Jacksonville, San Francisco, Seattle, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 on Fox. Chargers, Jacksonville, 8:15 on NBC. Now you move to Sunday, the Buffalo Bills. How lit was that stadium? I don't know the name of the stadium. Forgot the name of the stadium. I'll tell you right now the name of the stadium. Might as well give the sponsor plug. It is Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. I just used to call it Rich Stadium from when I was a kid. But it's Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. How lit was that? The DeMar Hamlin updates continue to be better. He's recovering nicely in the Cincinnati hospital. He's able to speak. He's able to communicate. We'll give you more details on that. Obviously, a huge lift for the Bills going into this weekend. It was still a big game. Kansas City winning on Saturday. They got the 1 seed. Buffalo needed to stay within the 2 seed. You can't imagine a better start than the kickoff return by Nyheim Hines, 96 yards to open the game. They're an 11-point favorite against the Miami Dolphins, who got an 11-6 victory over the Jets. Don't get me started on that 11 points. We'll get to that in a little bit, but 43.5 the total for the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins. Again, the third time that they played each other. Buffalo and Miami split during the year. San Francisco beat Seattle twice, once at home, and then a few Thursdays ago in Seattle. Jacksonville lost. Jacksonville beat the Chargers about 4 weeks ago on a 2-point conversion at the gun to beat the Chargers by 1 point. Miami. Buffalo lost early in the year. That's the famous scene with Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, making a mockery of the press box, throwing the computer around, the notebooks, everything around in that scene. And then Buffalo ended up beating Miami on a game-winning field goal a few Saturdays ago. Minnesota is a 3-point favorite over the New York Giants, 48.5. Giants didn't play their starters yesterday. They were locked into the 6th seed. Minnesota still had a chance at the 2 seed. They lose the tiebreaker to the 49ers, so they finished in the 3 seed. They'll get one home game. They played earlier this year. Vikings had a 11-point lead. Giants came back and scored, able to cover the 4.5 in a 3-point victory for the Vikings. Cincinnati and Baltimore, they played twice, including yesterday. Joe Mixon and the Cincinnati Bengals making a mockery of what the NFL's decision was for a coin flip. All they had to do was win. There'd be no coin flip involved. Cincinnati is the 3 seed, Baltimore the 6 seed. After the loss, the game will be in Cincinnati next week. 6.5-point favorite, 43.5 the total for the Cincinnati Bengals. And then Monday night, the rematch of opening night on NBC. The opening Sunday night game was Dallas hosting Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was a 3-point favorite there on the road, and they dominated Dallas. That was the game Dak Prescott got hurt. Cooper Rush had to come in for 4 games until Prescott came back. Dallas, however, the odds makers think that the Dallas Cowboys going on the road at Tampa Bay, second time Tom Brady's been a home underdog in his career. They lost to the Bengals early in the year, midway through the year, about 4 weeks ago. Cowboys, even after that awful showing at Washington yesterday, they probably saw the Eagles score, but they still continued to play their starters. Dallas -3 at Tampa Bay, 45.5. So there you have the wild card weekend all set up. Super wild card weekend starts next Saturday, 2 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday, 1 game Monday night. So let's get to the NFL. How lit was Buffalo, as we said? DeMar Hamlin getting better. He's tweeting out from his hospital bed. You got to think there's a higher power above. When you open the game with a 96-yard kickoff return to light that crowd as if that crowd wasn't on fire already, to light that crowd up, 7-0, 14 seconds into the game. Buffalo gets a 35-23 win over New England. New England had a 17-14 lead at one point. And then what do? This man of the hour, Nyheim Hines, gets another kickoff return, 101 yards for a touchdown in the second half, in the second quarter, to give Buffalo the lead that they would never relinquish. They win 35-23. They cover, they win, they get the number 2 seed. They will host the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins win against the Jets 11-6. It was a field goal game. Skylar Thompson, the third-string quarterback, able to get 3 field goals, including the game winner with 50 seconds left. Jets tried to do some razzle-dazzle at the end, ended up costing them in the end zone. Ball went out of bounds in the end zone. Miami gets a safety. They were favored 3.5. How sad for the Jets people who had the Jets plus 3.5 to have that safety happen with no time on the clock. You're covering for 59 minutes and 59 seconds. And then the last second, actually, it's even longer than 60 minutes because there was no time on the clock when that safety happened. So 11-6, Miami wins. They cover that game. They're in because of the Patriots' loss. Pittsburgh lost to both New England and Miami, so they were already eliminated once Miami won. And then New England lost, so they're out as well, too. So the Bills get the 2 seed. They'll get the Dolphins, who beat the Jets. Kansas City gets the 1 seed. They beat the Raiders on Saturday, 31-13. Patrick Mahomes is on fire. They went to Jerick McKinnon, another touchdown in the regular season to close. They'll have the bye week next week. They'll wait for the winner of the Chargers and the Bengals. The Chargers, the Bengals, any of the other seeds, they'll get the lower seed. I should tell you that the NFL reseeds after each round, so it's going to be a matter of who wins next weekend, whether it's a lower seed or a higher seed that will get there. But right now, Kansas City Chiefs are the 1 seed. Jacksonville, they held off Tennessee 20-16, did not cover the 6.5. I gave you Tennessee at plus 6.5. But how about the Tennessee Titans? A lot of people I know in Tennessee, very disappointed. 7-3 to start the year. The AFC South was wrapped up. Jacksonville was 1-6. Indianapolis and Houston, they were both out of it by the time they got to week 9. Jacksonville wins 5 in a row. They thumped Tennessee 4 weeks ago. They beat Tennessee again last weekend, win the AFC South, and get the number 4 seed. So they'll have a better record. They'll have a worse record than the Chargers. They'll have a worse record than the Ravens as well, and they're right there with the Miami Dolphins at 9-8. But they win the South. They're the 4 seed. A fumble recovery for a touchdown, down 16-13 in the fourth quarter. Josh Allen, a 37-yard fumble return. Not that Josh Allen. He plays for Buffalo. Not that other Josh Allen who plays for the Washington Commanders. This Josh Allen, 37-yard fumble return. Riley Patterson with the extra point, 20-16. Titans lose 7 in a row. And I'm not sure what's going to happen. Today's Black Monday. We'll get to the coaching firings in a second. But, boy, Black Monday might come down hard on Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans. You have a 7-3 record. You lose 7 in a row. You don't even make the playoffs. And you let Jacksonville start off at 2-6, come in there at 9-8, 7-2 to close out the season for Jacksonville. They win the AFC South. They'll get a home game against the Chargers next Saturday night. Cincinnati, we told you they beat the Ravens. They beat the Baltimore Ravens. They split the season series. Cincinnati has a better division tiebreaker, so therefore you don't have to worry about a coin flip because, as you know, Cincinnati-Buffalo, the game was canceled from last Monday night. So the first time since 1935 that not every team has played a full schedule in the NFL. Cincinnati and Buffalo with 16 games. They went with winning percentage in this scenario. But with the fact that Cincinnati beating Baltimore, they don't have to have a coin flip. Miami, we told you about their win over the Jets. They get the 7th seed over Pittsburgh. Philadelphia in the NFC gets the 1 seed. They beat up on the Giants yesterday. They did not cover. 16.5 points, I'm telling you, even though the Giants didn't play anybody. Eagles with a 22-16 win over the Giants. They lock up the number 1 seed. They'll have the bye week along with Kansas City next weekend. Moving on in the NFL, San Francisco dominated Arizona. They had all the tiebreakers over Minnesota, Dallas, and Philadelphia. If Philadelphia had lost, the 49ers could have gotten the 1 seed and the bye week, but they're going to get the 2 seed. They've got Seattle. They beat up on Seattle in week 2, and then they beat them in Seattle about 4 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. Closer game on Thursday Night Football, but they get the 2 seed. They'll host Seattle. That'll be the first game on Saturday. Vikings, they beat up on the Bears. The Bears with the number 1 pick now, thanks to the Houston Texans and the Bears' former coach, Lovie Smith, trying to win the game. Houston Texans will get the number 2 seed, but my Bears, they're going to get the number 1 seed. They're on the clock. It's only January 9th, but they're going to be the first ones in April to be on the draft board. So they're on the clock. Get an offensive lineman, get a cornerback, get somebody that's going to do very well. Justin Fields is all set at quarterback. Get him some protection on the offensive line. Anyway, the Vikings beat the Bears 29-13, covered the 6-point spread. Once Justin Fields went out, the line went up to 8, dropped down to 6. Vikings, no problem there over the Bears. Dallas looked awful. I mean, just awful. This team, how are you doing, Dallas fans? Are you confident this team's going to look good against Washington? Sam Howell, rookie quarterback out of North Carolina, made his debut and really just tore up the Cowboys defense, 26-6. They got a pick 6 from Kendall Fuller as Prescott threw one interception. That was the pick six, but he was not good. 14 of 37, 128 yards, a lot of incomplete passes. They couldn't get the running game going. In fact, Pollard led the team with 19 yards rushing. Patterson had 78 for Washington. Howell, 169 yards, one touchdown, one interception, and McLaurin caught the touchdown, 74 yards on 3 catches for Washington. They finished 8-1. They were in the playoff hunt. Props to Ron Rivera. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do quarterback situation. They still have Taylor Heineke, but now they've got Sam Howell there as well, too. I don't think Carson Wentz is the answer. So Washington beats Dallas. Dallas stays in the 5 seed. They're going to play Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay next Monday night. Seattle wins in overtime. They nearly lost that game. It would have gotten the Lions in the playoffs based on what happened Sunday night in Green Bay. But Seattle gets an overtime win on a kick from Jason Myers after he hit the upright with no time left in regulation. They win 19-16. They needed the Lions to win. How about that? The Detroit Lions, the Fighting Dan Campbells, they go into Green Bay. Nobody gave them a shot. 45 minutes before the game started, they found out they were eliminated. Jamal Williams, Jared Goff, they looked outstanding. They started off bad too. They've won 5 of their last 7 going into last night. Now let's make sure I want to be right about that. They beat the Bears. They lost to the Lions. That was a tough one. They could be in the playoffs if they'd beaten the Panthers on the road that day, but Carolina was hot. They beat the Jets on the road. They beat the Vikings. They beat the Jaguars. And then Thanksgiving was the last time they lost before the Panthers game against the Buffalo Bills. And even then, they played well against Buffalo that weekend as well, too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-1 in their last 6 after their 2017 win over Green Bay last night. 20-16 win, over Green Bay last night. They pressured Aaron Rodgers big time. Green Bay could not get a touchdown in 8 red zone opportunities against the Lions this year. They lost 15-9 early in the year at Detroit. Aaron Rodgers kind of pashot it, didn't give Detroit any respect. Don't you think NFL teams remember that when an NFL quarterback goes after NFL-type players and says that we lost to, quote-unquote, that team? Don't think that Dan Campbell and the Lions didn't hear that. Props to them for showing up, making a good effort out of it, not giving up, going for an above 500 record. They are a team that's going to be on the rise in the NFC North next year. It's going to be tough. We'll see what happens with Green Bay. Now Aaron Rodgers, another year of speculation on his retirement, another year of speculation on what Green Bay is going to do. Jordan Love waiting in the wings. This will be year 3 for him in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers waited for 4 years before they finally moved on from Brett Favre. So you got to see what's going to happen in Green Bay. But that loss takes them out of the playoffs, 8-9. So no Packers, no Aaron Rodgers, no Patriots, no Bill Belichick. And very interesting scenarios as we have the NFL playoffs going on right now. All right. Coach is fired already on Black Monday. Cliff Kingsbury gets fired by the Arizona Cardinals. He had a tough relationship with Kyler Murray. Steve Keim steps away as the general manager. They're total dysfunction in Arizona. J.J. Watt retired. What a great career by J.J. Watt. Calls it a career after 12 years. Got a standing ovation in Santa Clara yesterday. But that team is a mess, and they're going to have to figure out what to do. The Bidwells, not the greatest reputation as owners, going back to the original St. Louis Cardinals days. But Michael Bidwell is going to have to figure out what to do. Now they've got a coach and a GM, both out of jobs. Lovie Smith, I guess because he won, he got fired from Houston. The Houston Texans have fired 3 coaches in a row in 3 years. 1 coach a year, 3 black coaches, by the way. I know the Rooney Rule is out there, but they're not giving coaches an opportunity to win by putting that dog-you-know-what team out there. Houston, not good. They did win against Indianapolis last night, but big deal. They beat Indianapolis. They cost themselves a number 1 pick. As a Chicago Bears fan, thank you very much. 5 jobs are open, 3 with interim coaches. Denver, Carolina, Indianapolis. Denver looking at Sean Payton. Carolina going to interview Steve Wilkes tomorrow. And Indianapolis has Jeff Saturday as their interim coach. And they'll probably look to get another coach as well, too. You see the lines going across. Check out the online post, the daily post, 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. We're not going to have any time to get to the NBA or NHL today. There's 6 games in the NBA, 6 games in the NHL. Not really a college football schedule. Back Tuesday with a full college schedule. Conference play big time. I think I saw, let me count them up real quick here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 top 25 teams in college basketball tomorrow. But right now, it's all about football. It's all about Super Wildcard Weekend next weekend. It's all about the BCS Championship tonight. Let's look at the lines one more time. We'll give you the playoff formats right now. The number 2 seed 49ers will host Seattle Saturday afternoon at 4:30, 10-43 for San Francisco. That defense is dominant. I would say the 49ers probably the best odds in the NFL right now to win the Super Bowl with that defense. Chargers, a 1-point favorite at Jacksonville. Kind of surprising. Jacksonville, 5-game winning streak. Chargers had Williams and Bosa hurt yesterday, but they go in as a favorite. They lost earlier in the year in Jacksonville, 47.5. Sunday, 3 games. Buffalo and Miami for the 3rd time. Highmark Stadium going to be lit again. DeMar Hamlin, if there's any way he can get out of the hospital bed and get on that Jumbotron, that place will be on fire again next week. 43.5 the total against Miami, who got that win over the Jets. Minnesota beat the Giants earlier in the year, a 3-point favorite. At home, 48.5 against Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Cincinnati and Baltimore, they beat Baltimore, did the Bengals yesterday. 3rd time they're going to match up. And then Monday night, Dallas at Tampa Bay, 3-point favorite. At Tampa Bay, 45.5. Who's confident in the Cowboys right now after watching them play against Washington? Dak Prescott has missed 5 games this year, and he is tied for the league lead in interceptions. That's not good. And Tampa Bay, I know their defense hasn't played very well, but that's still the GOAT. That's still TB12. That's still Tom Brady. And if this is going to be his last year, don't you think he'd want to get a home win against America's team? So America's team against America's GOAT, the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, next Monday night to round out Wildcard Weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles have a 1 seed and a bye. The Kansas City Chiefs have a 1 seed and a bye. They will be sitting back on the couch next weekend, waiting to see who they play. They'll reseed after next weekend's games, and then we'll have divisional rounds and the conference championship. By the way, if Buffalo and Kansas City are involved in the championship round, they will determine it by a coin flip because Buffalo did beat Kansas City early in the year. Buffalo only played 16 games. The coin flip will come into play, and they will play a neutral site game. If it is Buffalo and Kansas City, Cincinnati is involved in that scenario as well, too, because Cincinnati beat Kansas City early in the year as well. All right, we are back with you on Thursday, 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific time, trying to get some guests this week to preview the NFL Wildcard Weekend. We'll recap the BCS Championship, daily post at 6 p.m. Eastern weekdays, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you're interested in sponsorships, contact me anytime, anywhere. I'm interested in helping your restaurant, your sports bar out, whatever we can do to help you get promotion and business in there. All right, for last week, lots of games here, but week 1, year to date, since January 1st, I told you the tracking system was going to keep track of all the best bet selections. 58 and 48, about a 55% clip. Not great. The NFL 10-7, NBA 22-8, where I'm doing really well at. NCAA football 0-2. Those were the 2 bowl games. Tonight is the last NCAA football game, the BCS Championship. College basketball had that 1-6 day in 1 week, but other than that, you take that out, that's a 19 and 20. 19 and 21, 19 and 20. Yeah, that's right. So 1 game under if it wasn't for the 1-6 day last week. And then the NHL 6-5 all year to date since January 1st. All right, best bets, again, 6 o'clock Eastern. The 6 o'clock Eastern, the Daily Post will come up on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. But I like TCU. 13 points tonight. That's a lot. I like Max Duggan. Senior leadership. Offensive line has got to protect the front 7 for Georgia. They've got to be able to run the ball with Mercado. Georgia's got to be able to get to Max Duggan on the pass rush. They've only allowed 14 points per game. But I got to think the TCU and Sonny Dykes, the way they handle Michigan, he'll come up with a game plan against Georgia. This is not going to be an easy test for Georgia. You saw it last week with Ohio State. You saw TCU, what they did to Michigan. 13 points, a lot. TCU stays within the 13. I see it even maybe being an overtime game. What's the props odds on the overtime? Somebody on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, comment, send it to me. Let me know what you think on the props odds for an overtime in this scenario. TCU plus 13. That's the best bet. The rest of them, NBA, NHL, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks again to everybody on all those platforms for the support. 2022 was great. We're going into 2023 on fire. Look forward to having you all jump on board. There's plenty of room on this bandwagon. for the V-Party Sports Podcast. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Have a great day. Enjoy your Monday. Enjoy the game tonight. I know I'll be in front of the TV watching the BCS Championship. We'll talk about it on Thursday. Stay tuned on the Daily Post every day, weekdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I look forward to your comments. I look forward to your support. We'll see you Thursday, 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. That's the V-Party Sports Podcast for today.